He was known as a world-known artist while he was mowing grass. His pictures were exhibited in Munich and Venice while he was making butter for his family. And also, he was the founder of the Ukrainian Art Academy, who could also nurse the cows, the way his students saw him, and how her memories were converted into a book 100 years later. Watch further in the program, an illustrated book in honor of the famous Ukrainian artist Oleksandr Murashko. It is a book about a person with a beard who could have been seen attending to his vegetable garden, or mowing the grass, or working on his easel. I just think that those who don't know their past can't see their future. Books are a certain experiment which authors used to show that the historic source can be interesting and available. The illustrated book of memories about the artist Oleksandr Murashko actually consists of two different books. The basis for the book is the memories of his student, Tina Omolchenko. She was a village girl who was lucky to live at the artist's home and studied under his supervision. According to Daria Dobryan, Tina got into the artist's house as a help. Then he saw that she could draw, and Tina started attending his art academy. She had been watching him for many years. After his murder in 1919, she wrote down everything she remembered about her teacher, and today we present the book that has never been published before, and you have the possibility to get to know it better. Very moving and funny stories of Murashko's student inspired the researchers to create the illustrations to the text they had. A young artist, Alina Gayevyaya, has achieved her plan by creating a unique story in pictures titled The Memories of Oleksandr Murashko, Tina's text with Alina's eyes. At first, we didn't have a documented material, so I guessed that doing a memory book without pictures is not that interesting. So we went to Alina, and she said that she was in fact interested in doing this job. But while working on the book, we found a lot of documents and photos connected with Tina Omolchenko, and we understood that we had enough material for 2 books already. If Daria, as a scholar, was doing actual research and gathered the information systematically, for Alina Gayevyaya, the proposal to illustrate the book of unusual memories about Oleksandr Murashko was an unexpected experiment. It was interesting to research this outstanding artist, and it was very responsible. Now, of course, after the work has already been done, it all seems usual. But back then, for me, it was all the same as doing Michelangelo. And who should you be to illustrate such a famous artist? The work with the unusual text from Tina Omolchenko's diary for the author of the book is trying her hand at that, and it's a big responsibility. Alina Gayevyaya had the aim to tell about the great artist by means of contemporary illustration.
Ілюструвати художника було досить нове, що, знаєте, це ти не ілюструєш письменника, поета. Експеримент полягав в тому, що це дуже така серйозна тема. Це не просто сьогодні.
For me personally, illustrating the artist was something absolutely new. The experiment is that it is such a serious topic. It's not just that we illustrate the present today. We had to study this question back and forth, not to make any mistakes. We had to be extremely responsible and had to use information carefully, relying on our experience. But the idea was there. We thought it through over 6 to 9 months while we were preparing the book. We knew it was more than just doing the illustration of somebody's memory. 2 women, 2 artists, and 100 years between them. And this is the Murashko with Tina's eyes of 1917 and the Murashko with Alina's eyes of 2017. 2 books would be interesting because they will live together to complement and contrast the modern comments and the 100 years old memories. And the Poltava dialect of Tina Omolchenko wasn't changed, as well as the text itself. She had a very specific language, and now I thought that these illustrations could be very touching and moving. So we want to make them very specific, to make them look so authentic too. We were trying to appeal to the text. We wanted to make it comic and simple and very touching and substantial too. The modern artist Alina Gayevyaya had to look at the great artist with the eyes of his student. Tina Omelchenko adored her teacher and wrote her impressions about him on the pages of her school copybook, which turned into a diary. This copybook is very thin, but we practically used it for all different quotes. And here is one of my favorite, when Tina had already been studying in the art academy. Alexander, she called him OO, comes to me and says, no matter who Tina draws, Ivan or Stepan, it is going to be Grigory anyway. And this phrase has a meaning now. In the book, backed with comments and photos, there is an artist, Oleksandr Murashko, who travelled through Europe and exhibited at major exhibitions. In Kiev after 1917, he was actively engaged in organising the creative process. He founded the Academy of Arts, art studios. Murashko was engaged in teaching activities for 10 years, but for lack of documents, very little has been written about him as a teacher. Examining the drawings in the book and in person at the exhibition, visitors are convinced that the artist Alina Gayevyaya showed Oleksandr Murashko first of all as a human being, actually just the way he was described by Tina Omelchenko, his student. This effect of bringing an unordinary personality to a reader through the ordinary things, that's what makes the authors interested in this book. I think that she saw in him that he was both a world-class artist, even a classic artist then, and at the same time he was very humble in communication. He never refused to cook something or to work in the vegetable garden. And I think that this character trait is significant because we often think of artists as if they live somewhere in the ivory tower. But in fact, here in this book, we can see a different part of his life. Tina Omelchenko outlined the main principles of Murashko's teaching and his attitude to his students. But importantly, she showed on the pages amusing and sometimes very dramatic cases which she witnessed herself or heard about from Murashko. Sometimes it is all described with humor in a very simple language, as one coherent sentence without any punctuation. Therefore, her memories about him are not only the memories of a teacher, but also the memories about an ordinary person, the person who has his own shortcomings and some interesting situations in life too. This text of Tina Omelchenko was conditionally divided into 30 paragraphs. I made a drawing, a kind of visualization out of those paragraphs of her. We worked on separate paragraphs very carefully. I tried very hard to portray these. There is one interesting thing when he is cutting the grass. So she comes and says, "Oh, I thought you were a teacher at a drawing school, but here you are doing some manual work." To which he replied, "Well, Tina, when you are asked where were the artists of the last century, then you should say they were cutting the grass." Records of Tina Omelchenko cover almost the entire life of the artist. Daria Dobryan presented these materials in one of her 2 books and backed up with scientific commentary and photographs. But of course, she wrote something from his words, from his stories, and something from her personal impressions and memories. But in Murashko's house, she lived from 1914 to 1919, in fact, until the very day he was assassinated. Since the texts of the diary are very simple, the drawings repeat the same tendency. The drawings are extremely simple too, and they are made in the style of historic comic books. We discussed it, and I understood that we have white, black or grey colours, and this is enough for this book. I saw this graphically in this monochrome.
Це графічно в такому монохромі.
First impressions are very important, says Alina. The cover of the book is very simple, nothing superfluous. It is austere and reserved, and that makes a perfect background for a childishly drawn tulip. At the same time, in her diary, Tina writes that they planted roses and cabbages in Murashko's farm. No tulips mentioned. Perhaps this is Tina's favourite flower, as a symbol of admiration for the master.
А цей тюльпан, власне, Даша дуже
Actually,
випадково
Dasha saw the
побачила на
tulip
зошиті
accidentally on Tina's notebook. It is not actually drawn there, but it is a very graphic tulip.
тюльпан, і у нас було
We had quite a few cover versions, because the cover is the face of the book. And there were discussions. We even thought to draw Murashko's head on the cover. We appeal with our cover to the cover of Tina. In fact, this is her notebook, only 100 years after.
тільки через 100 років.
In the design of both books, the authors replicated not only the size and the color of Tina Omolchenko's notebook, but also the above-mentioned element on the covers. These two editions, in form and in terms of historical part in color, completely replicates Tina Omolchenko's notebook. And we decided to stick to this idea. Since there was a tulip scratched on her notebook, we decided to transfer this tulip to our cover. Naturally, the authors wanted to illustrate the memories of Tina Omolchenko with her portrait. After all, sometimes the students of Murashko became his models in the studio. There was also a portrait of Tina Omolchenko, created by Oleksandr Murashko. That's according to Daria Dobryan. It is also known that at the time of his assassination, this piece of art was in his studio. However, after 1919, there was no information about Tina Omolchenko's portrait. I have certain thoughts. It can be a priceless piece of someone's private collection or even a state collection, but to be attributed not like Murashko. Therefore, this portrait can be anywhere, as well as these manuscripts, which indicate that the researchers of previous generations considered them lost at the time when they were just in a private collection, and today they are already available to everyone. In the publication of books, apart from the research and creative component, there was also a super task. The authors defined the noble message of this historical publication. The most important task of ours is undoubtedly to draw attention to Oleksandr Murashko, to his creativity and to the problem of his estate in the center of Kiev. While working on the illustrations, Alina Gayevyaya even noticed certain mystical regularity. She considers the story of Murashko's student to be a kind of gift for her from the Grand Master. This opportunity, in fact, is a random one, or maybe not accidental at the same time. I actually, literally, have just returned from the plein air from France. In Normandy, I had the opportunity, just before the opening of this exhibition, to visit the house of Oleksandr Oleksandrovich, where he lived and worked. The contact with the fate of Oleksandr Murashko has given new ideas in the work and inspired the artist to create original pieces of art. Despite her young age, he has a lot of pieces of art already, as well as the admirers of her extraordinary talent. Now we are on the second floor, where my personal exhibition before and after is on display. And it too, as it turned out, was created in the last 5 years. 5 years. That was the time Tina Omolchenko lived in Oleksandr Murashko's house. The main thing is to move forward, to give yourself to art as much as possible, if it's your thing, really. Just like Oleksandr Murashko, who spared neither himself nor his strengths and abilities. That's why we combined these two events in one day, actually. The exhibition in the museum, Spiritual Treasures of Ukraine, stirred an interest not only among scientists and artists, but also among the wider public, and this is very encouraging for the authors. It inspires them and gives them creative satisfaction from the work done. I'm very pleased because I'm interested and attracted by people who are not indifferent. I see curiosity in the eyes of those who come here today. Obviously, the curiosity is not so much for my person as a young researcher, but curiosity for Murashko. And I, as a person who deals with his biography, cannot remain indifferent. I'm pleased that my work is interesting for others, because it's nice to work when you see some kind of feedback. When you work and no one appreciates that it quickly gets boring. In general, I'm pleased with this event because everything went quite well. It seems to me that we have demonstrated the spectrum of one person as broad as possible. and thus we showed the path to the viewers too.
Тим самим, якби навернувши глядача теж на правильний шлях.